Chapter 3 Mother Nature Delivers. January 3rd. Dear Laura, we are in what the Lakota called the moon of popping trees, so named because this time of year ice storms break tree branches with a loud pop. Next month will be the moon of frost in the teepees. Late March brings the moon of snow blindness. These names for moons give us a glimpse into the Lakota's connection to their environment. I wish we used these names today. I am putting away my holiday decorations and looking one last time at Christmas cards. My client Sandra sent me a picture of her dog. This year Placido stands in a garden with his tongue out and an American flag around his neck. Sandra makes her living frying donuts. She has built her life around Placido, who gives her what she has of contentment and friendship. Over the years, I have received a drawer full of Placido pictures. They remind me how important pets can be for people. Many clients have been rescued by their relationships to animals. Donella always wanted a pet, but she had a long list of reasons she shouldn't have one. She was allergic to cat hair, had a studio apartment, and couldn't afford cat food, kitty litter, and vet bills. But after September 11th, Donella couldn't concentrate at work. She went to the Humane Society and selected a Siamese kitten. She said, "Without Sophie, I'd be on Prozac and Metamucil." Losing pets is a much more painful experience than most people anticipate or than our culture generally acknowledges. Many clients apologize as they sob over the loss of a pet. They say, "I feel stupid being so upset about this." But often they add, "I'm crying more about this loss than I cried when my parents died." Pets work their way deep into our hearts, but in our human-centric culture, we can't afford to admit this. In a Jane Goodall film called Children and Nature, kids with serious psychological problems were sent to a camp where they were allowed to choose pets for themselves. At first, the staff watched the kids closely to make sure they would not abuse the animals. Sadly, hurting animals is common in disturbed children. Gradually, the children grew fond of the animals and selected their own pets. Then many of the children hesitated to touch their pets for fear they would hurt them. These kids had never experienced themselves as anything but destructive, and now they expected that they would accidentally destroy what they loved. As they cared for their animals and developed relationships with them, they realized that their pets were dependent on them in order to survive, and the children experienced their first unconditional positive regard. Animals don't live in clock time, let alone computer time or microwave time. Recently, I walked at the state fair among the kids displaying their cattle. I thought to myself, these cattle are moving at exactly the same speed today as cattle moved 1,000 years ago. In 2003, it's therapeutic for kids to slow down to the speed of cattle. Rhythms synchronize. Entrainment refers to a biological law that states when organisms are together, they soon match rhythms. When we are in the natural world, we slow down. Then amazing things happen. Last August, my daughter-in-law and I laid down on a blanket and watched the Perseid meteor showers. As we breathed the cool, grassy air and counted the stars falling, we had one of the finest conversations in our relationship. We talked about life in outer space, death, God, and time. Laura, you know about the effects of nature from your rock climbing and canoeing. As you move at the speed of a river, your breathing changes. Your senses open up to the smell of trees and the sounds of splashing water. The Xhosa people of South Africa believe that a human community will be cursed and die when no one notices the rising and setting of the sun and the phases of the moon. I am inclined to agree. If we are too out of touch to notice the moon when the cherries turn black, what is it we are in touch with? Perhaps the greatest gift we receive from the natural world is the moment when we understand something that is deeply important. Theoretically, we can have epiphanies in shopping malls, but that is not where they generally come to us. Epiphanies burst forth when it's quiet and slow. Jim and I once camped with folk singer Butch Hancock. We journeyed through Big Bend National Park on the Texas-Mexican border. In the park, ocotillo flowers blossomed like flames on the ends of their long candle branches. Javelinas and coyotes foraged in tamarisk, belladonna, and mesquite. We canoed up the Rio Grande most of the day. Early evening, we pitched our tents and talked while we cooked dinner. Even though I was on the river, my conversation was political and my mood gloomy, reflecting the cloudy sky and the weary chill we all must have been feeling. Just then the sun broke out and flamed the canyon walls in iridescent bronze. Butch turned to me and said, "Look, look, this is the kind of thing that really can happen." I'm not sure Butch meant this remark as profoundly as I heard it. For me, it was a metaphor. When I'm discouraged, I remember that blazing canyon wall and tell myself, look at the good things that can happen. Laura, you can't orchestrate epiphanies, but you can suggest walks at sunset and blankets on the grass on starry nights. Then you can cross your fingers and hope that a goose flies across the face of the moon, or that catalpa flowers blow down on your clients like snow. Whenever you are working with people who live in their heads, consider recommending a pet. There is nothing like a kitten playing in front of a fire to calm you down. After a long day at the office, most humans can benefit from the manic warmth of a loyal dog's greeting. Next time you're in my office, I'll show you my most recent picture of Placido. Chapter 4. Family Bashing, February 3rd. Dear Laura, Annie Dillard writes that a day spent reading is a day well spent, an observation most befitting February. This time of year I spend most evenings by my fire reading. Usually I start with work-related books and articles, but after an hour or so I switch to an old favorite like Cather or Trollope. Outside it's a deep freeze, black except for the brittle stars, but inside it's bright and warm. The contrast feels delicious. Last night I read a case history about deep brief therapy, an approach that lasts a few sessions but profoundly changes the clients involved. It struck me as a bogus concept. Relationships take time. When we suggest that high-quality advice can be given under rushed conditions, we undercut what we can offer people, a calm place to carefully explore their situations. Furthermore, we are likely to harm people if, while we are ignorant about many aspects of their lives, we jump in with radical advice and grandiose plans to transform them. The case history concerned an African-American woman who was living with a man she didn't particularly like and working at a job she hated. She had been on antidepressants and describing herself as chronically miserable. The therapist asked about her family, and she recalled a hurtful comment her mother had made to her at a funeral. He seized on that remark as the cause of his client's depression. He felt the mother had permanently stifled his client's ability to express her feelings. He ignored other possible problems such as his client's bad job, unresponsive partner, and lack of friends. For that matter, he didn't look into her exercise habits, alcohol and drug use, or the significant problems facing Black women in this country. Instead, he helped his client get in touch with her rage against her mother. Based on the one remark from his client, the therapist demonized her mother in order to manufacture a brief, deep experience. What's wrong with this picture? With almost no information, this therapist encouraged his client to rewrite her history and replan her future. Parenthetically, he discussed the importance of honoring subjective truth, a fuzzy phrase that describes what clients feel happened in the past. That concept seems to me a prescription for trouble. The therapist built a skyscraper on a meringue. Many clients come to us because their subjective truths are twisted in ways that distort their lives. One of our most important jobs is to help clients examine these subjective truths and replace them with a more authentic reality. I don't know what the mother in the case history was like, but neither did the client's therapist. All children have grievances. No one really feels understood. I love Shep Walker's line in Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood. When he was asked, "Did you get enough love?" he answered, "What's enough?" The therapist made the shaky assumption that if the daughter was unhappy, it must be the family's fault. In fact, the relationship between parenting and successful children is complex and unpredictable. Honest parents don't always raise honest kids. One of the most wholesome women I know grew up with an alcoholic mother. Some of the unhappiest adults I've met come from sensitive, child-focused families. Well-meaning couples sometimes have extraordinarily bad luck with their kids, while slapdash parents may raise highly successful children. In fact, in one family, the siblings can cover the mental health gamut. Ever since Freud, psychologists have seen families as hotbeds of pathology. We have taught therapists to ferret out the sick dynamics, hidden messages, and unrealistic pressures that families inflict on their members. We have encouraged clients to recall slights, mistakes, and times they were hurt or misunderstood. During the recovered memory era, we even, quote unquote, helped clients remember traumas they had forgotten. After 30 years as a therapist, I know terrible things happen in families. I once saw a hairdresser mother who got angry with her daughter and scalded her head. I have counseled incest victims and children abandoned by their parents. I watched middle-aged businessmen cry when they talked of their relationships with mean-spirited fathers. But I also believe that we can't hate our families without hating ourselves. Historically, therapists have used the dysfunctional family as an explanation for adult misery and failure. In doing this, we have largely ignored the effects of culture, of meaningless jobs, long commutes, bullying, and fears of poverty, war, violent death, and environmental catastrophes. And we have overlooked what people have known since time began. Life makes most of us unhappy. Many of our psychological theories are not family-friendly. We have used positive words such as autonomy and independence to praise distance, and negative words such as codependent and enmeshed to punish closeness. With terms like emotional incest, we have framed many loving acts as pathological, and we have utterly confused people about the nature of love. We have elaborated on what families do to people, but we haven't articulated on what families do for people. We have encouraged clients to pursue their own dreams without considering an aging grandmother who craves a visit, children who yearn for attention, or a sibling who needs an ally. While families are imperfect institutions, they are also our greatest source of meaning, connection, and joy. I remember a mother in her early 40s whose 3 kids were in high school and about to fly the coop. She was in therapy to deal with anticipatory grief. She said, "I wish I could build a moat around our acreage and just keep us all together. We have had such great times." I recall our daughter at 5 nuzzling into her father and saying, "I'm melting into richness." Of course, as therapists, we discuss hurt and angry feelings, and sometimes clients need to set limits and make position statements about what they will and won't tolerate in their families. But our goal should always be to strengthen families. Even for clients from the most abusive families, we can say, find someone to love that is family. Even if it is your second cousin twice removed, seek out that person and build a family relationship. Everyone needs kin. Families come to us when they are stuck. Often that means that the way the family is trying to solve at least one problem is making things worse. A wife wants her husband's attention, so she complains. He feels bullied and withdraws even further. Or parents want a teenager to talk to them, so they pester her for information, and she responds by becoming more secretive, so they pester her more. As I write about stuck families, I think of the Wilsons. The dad was a leather-clad biker with curly red hair. His 2 sons wore the same black leather jackets and had the same flowing red curls. The family was in therapy because, just like their father before them, the boys were flunking out of high school. The parents insisted the boys study, but the sons demonstrated their manhood and their identification with their father by resisting school and homework. When they were in my office, the Wilsons spoke gravely of grades and teachers' conferences. But when I ran into them one afternoon at the Dairy Queen, they were laughing over banana splits. Then they put on their helmets and roared off into the sunset. Seeing the Wilson family out in the real world reminded me that therapy is only a small part of our clients' lives. We have a responsibility not to screw up the other parts that work. Since I was in graduate school, our field may have slightly softened its harsh views of families. We've had a positive psychology movement, and many clinicians have rethought their attitudes. As the culture grows more toxic, more therapists are aware of the difficulties that parents face. we see that many families need to be supported rather than analyzed. Still, Laura, you will experience plenty of family bashing in supervision sessions, books, and classrooms. I urge you to take it all with a full shaker of salt. All families are a little crazy, but that is because all humans are a little crazy. When we alienate clients from their families, we assume an enormous responsibility. If we take away belief in family, what do we replace it with? If people don't trust their families, who is it they can trust? When a client tells you that you are much more understanding than his wife, you can say, "But I don't see you every morning at the breakfast table. It's easier for me to be detached. I only have to deal with you 1 hour a week, and I don't have to convince you to mow the yard." When a client begins, "I grew up in a dysfunctional family," you can say, "Let's not worry too much about what we call your family. What actually happened?" When a client moans, "My parents are responsible for my despair," you can say, "We can talk about that, but we can also talk about what you can do to be happier." Families, for all their flaws, are one of our remaining ancient and true shelters. Families, not therapists, will be there for our clients if they lose their jobs, go to the hospital, or need someone to show up at their bowling tournaments. To quote poet Robert Frost, "Home is where when you have to go there, they have to take you in." He also wrote in the same poem, "Families are something you somehow haven't to deserve." When you see families, don't forget that they have solved 1,000 problems without your help. You will be seeing them in the February of their lives, but it won't always be February. June will come. Tread lightly. Do not fix what is not broken.